Hare Krishna, welcome to the 18-day session on the systematic study of the greatest among all the Vedic literatures and scriptures, the Srimad Bhagavatam. Before we begin today's session, I shall chant a few prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudirayeta Nashtaprayesha Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, welcome again to everyone to this systematic analysis and study of the Srimad Bhagavatam. We have been discussing and studying the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam that contains 19 chapters and 808 shlokas. We are currently in the 15th chapter of the first canto, which very beautifully explains the Mahaprasthana, the final disappearance and the destination of the greatest among the pure devotees and eternal associates of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, that is the Pandavas and some more of the intimate pure devotees who are the family members of the Pandavas like Draupadi, Kunti and Vidura. We have already seen how Arjuna arrived from Dwaraka carrying the most heartbreaking, or you can say soul-breaking news of the disappearance of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna and the entire dynasty of the Yadavas. I have already explained in the earlier sessions that the appearance and disappearance of the Supreme Lord is a completely spiritual, divine and transcendental event. There is nothing like material birth and death to the Supreme Lord and also to his eternal associates like the residents of Dwaraka, the family members of the Supreme Lord. All of them, just like the Supreme Lord very clearly establishes this fact in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, text number 9, Janma karma cha me divyam evam yo veti tattvataha tyaktva deham punag janma me neti mameti sojana. The appearance and all the activities of the Supreme Lord are completely divyam, divine. Anyone who understands the transcendental nature of the appearance and activities of the Supreme Lord and also his eternal associates immediately becomes eligible to attain moksha or liberation. So to understand in the right perspective how the Supreme Lord and his eternal associates, the residents of Dwaraka, are just enacting a drama of coming to this stage of samsara, the material world, and for the supreme benefit of all the living entities, they perform many divine and spiritual activities, and finally at the appropriate time the Supreme Lord arranges to take back all his eternal associates by various means back to the spiritual world, back to his eternal kingdom. So this is the right understanding about the so-called enactment of the fight of Maushala Leela among the family members of the Yadava dynasty that took place at Prabhasa Tirtha or Somnath. Arjuna, after witnessing these events at Prabhasa and Dwaraka, has returned back to Hastinapura and has conveyed this most disappointing and sad news to Yudhishthira and to the Pandavas. So this is sad because although the appearance and the disappearance of the Supreme Lord is of, it does not have any material quality attached to it, and therefore there is no question of any kind of material happiness or sorrow at the appearance and disappearance of the Lord and his eternal associates. Yet just because the Pandavas were now bereft of the direct association of the Supreme Lord had returned to his eternal abode. So the Pandavas, as soon as they came to know of this departure of the Supreme Lord, they also prepared to start their final journey from the material world. So it is further explained in the 15th chapter, in the 31st verse onwards, that Nishamya Bhagavan Margam Samstham Yadukulasya Cha Swapathaya Matim Chakre Nibhritatma Yudhishthiraha. Yudhishthira, the eldest of the Pandavas, the sovereign ruler of the entire world, Nishamya Bhagavan Margam, when he heard about the final destination of the Supreme Lord, Samstham Yadukulasya Cha, as well as the disappearance of the Yadavas, Swapathaya Matim Chakre, he immediately took the decision, the firm decision, that the Pandavas must also decide, must also prepare for their final journey of departure from this samsara, from this material world. Also, Prithapi, Pritha is another name of Kunti. So even Pritha, Kunti, after hearing this news, what did she do? It is explained further that Prithapyanushritya dhananjayoditam nasham yadunam bhagavadgatim shatam ekanta bhaktya bhagavatyadhokshaje niveshitatmopa upararama samsritehe. It is very beautifully explained here that Prithapi Anushritya Dhananjayoditam. Dhananjaya is another name of Arjuna. Hearing these words of Arjuna, Kunti Devi, Nasham Yadunam Bhagavad Gatim Shatam. They, all the family members of the Supreme Lord, attained to, returned back to the spiritual world from where they all had come to accompany the Supreme Lord in his divine pastimes. So, Ekanta Bhaktya Bhagavati Adhokshaje, even Kunti completely now absorbed herself in the engagement of bhakti. What kind of bhakti? Ekanta bhakti, or unalloyed or complete exclusive devotional service unto the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, who is also mentioned here as Adhokshaja. Niveshita Atma Upararama Samsritehe. Samsriti means samsara, and by this act of Kunti, very quickly Upararama Samsritihi, she vanquished all her material bondage and attained freedom from samsara, or liberation from this material world, and returned back to the spiritual world. This is not the ordinary level of liberation or moksha as attained by Dhritarashtra, who just became free from material bondage and came to the position of the Jivatma, of realizing that one is a Jivatma or the eternal soul. But the liberation of the Pandavas and of Kunti Devi goes to the highest levels of moksha or liberation, wherein it is not just self-realization but also God realization. The Jivatma also realizes that he is not just or only the spirit soul, the eternal spirit soul, completely disconnected from matter, but is also the eternal part and parcel, a vibhinna amsha of the Supreme Brahman, of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, and then reconnects. The Jivatma reconnects and re-establishes in his eternal loving relationship with the Supreme Lord, and that is the stage of the realization of infinite bliss and happiness, which the soul, which is the birthright, the original constitutional position of the soul, as explained in the Upanishads and in the Vedanta Sutra, that Anandamayo Bhyasat. So that supreme Ananda can be realized by the Jivatma only in the realization of one's eternal loving relationship with the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. And this is that highest level of the highest stage of liberation attained by Kunti and by the Pandavas. So we shall see here further that Yaya Harad Bhuvo Bharam Tam Tanum Vijaha Vajaha Kantakam Kantakenaiva Dvayam Apishitu Swayam. After the Supreme Lord had gone back to the spiritual world in his self-same divine eternal form, without giving up his body, because the body of the Supreme Lord is Satchidananda Vigraha. It is neither created nor is ever destroyed. It neither takes birth nor the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna is subject to death. So, Yada Mukundo Bhagavan Imam Mahim Jahau Svatvanva Shravaniya Satkataha. When the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna left this earthly planet in his self-same form, Swatanva, it is very specifically mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam that Swatanu, in his self-same divine transcendental form, the Supreme Lord went back to the spiritual world. So at that time, from the same day onwards, Tada Ahar, that very day began Kalihi Anvavartata, was the change of the Yuga or the millennium. The last day of Dwapara Yuga is the day of the disappearance of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, and from the next day onwards began the current or the present age known as Kali Yuga. So, Yudhishthira observed that now the most degraded, from the spiritual perspective, the most degraded age of Kali Yuga has begun, and therefore Yudhishthira Maharaj immediately prepared himself to also follow and traverse on the path of completely devoted and dedicated spirituality, by which they also could go back to the spiritual world, to the eternal kingdom of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So first Yudhishthira enthroned his grandson, that is Parikshit, as the next emperor of the entire world. Swarat Pautram Vinayinam Atmanaha Susamam Gunaihi Toyani Vyapatim Bhumir Abhyasinchad Gajahvaye. Yudhishthira personally coronated Parikshit to be the next sovereign ruler of this world. He also Mathurayam Tatha Vajram Shurasena Patim Tataha. He also coronated at Mathura, where which is also known as the land of Shurasena. So he enthroned the great grandson of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, whose name is Vajra or Vajranabha. So the principal son of Krishna is Pradyumna. The son of Pradyumna is Aniruddha, and the son of Aniruddha and Usha is Vajra or Vajranabha. So Mathurayam Tatha Vajram Shurasena Patim Tataha Prajapatyam Nirupyeshtim Agnin Apibanishwaraha. He coronated Vajra as the king of Shurasena Desha at Mathura, and then Yudhishthira made the firm decision to completely detach and disconnect himself from all material connections, from all material affairs. So he amalgamated all the sense organs into the mind into the life air into breathing, and his complete existence, the material existence, into the embodiment of the five elements, and his body, finally one portion of his body to the final unto Kala or to eternal time, and then in his pure self he became completely free from the material conception of life. It is very significant, important and very interesting to note that there is a description of the Mahaprasthana, of the final journey of the Pandavas, in the 15th chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, and there is another description which is very different, in fact entirely different narration of the Mahaprasthana in the Mahabharata, in the Mahaprasthanika Parva. So there in the Mahabharata it is described that the Pandavas left towards the Himalayas, and as they proceeded on their final journey in the destination towards attaining the final goal of life, as they were proceeding in the Himalaya Parvatas, they crossed Badrikashrama, and then they started climbing the Satopantha mountain, which still exists beyond after Badrikashrama or Badrinath in Uttarakhand. There is still the mountain called Satopant, the place where the Pandavas went for their final journey. So as they proceeded, before even reaching the destination, Draupadi fell down, and Yudhishthira, without any attachment, he described the reason for the fall of Draupadi, that she had some material deficiencies, some dosha or some fault, due to which she was unable to further continue. Likewise, one by one, Sahadeva, Nakula, Arjuna, Bhima, all began to fall down one after another, and Yudhishthira explained the reason of their fall and attributed their fall to some fault that they possessed, that they had. And it was only Yudhishthira who could reach finally the Svargaloka. So, and even he reached after a brief stay, a brief visit to the hellish planets. So this is the narration as given, as described in the Mahabharata. But here in the Srimad Bhagavatam, we would find a completely different narrative. So let us hear what the Srimad Bhagavatam has to say and describe about the final destination of the Pandavas, and then I shall give a comparative analysis. So now it is explained here that Yudhishthir Maharaj was Chiravasa niraharo baddhavan muktamugdhashaha dakshayan atmano rupam jadonmatta pishachavat anavekshamano niragad ashrinvan badhiro yatha. He immediately left everything. He dressed himself in torn clothing so that no one would recognize them and disturb them or deviate them from the exclusive path of spirituality that they had taken up. He did not even bother to wait for his brothers to follow him. He had made the firm decision to proceed on the spiritual path, so he just set out. But sarvetam anunirjagmur bhrataraha kritanishchayaha, all the younger brothers of Maharaj Yudhishthira, the Pandavas, they also krita nishchayaha, took this firm decision, and tam anunirjagmur, they also followed the path of Yudhishthira. And as they proceeded, it is described that on their spiritual journey, te sadhukrita sarvartha jnatvatyantikam atmanaha, they very well realized and understood gyatva atmana atyantikam atmanaha, they understood the final supreme goal of life, of all spiritual practices, to be manasa dharayam asur vaikuntha charanambujam. They understood that the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna in Vaikuntha Loka is the Atmanaha Atyantikam, the supreme ultimate goal, the ultimate attainment of the spirit soul. So therefore, Manasa Dharayam Asuhu, they completely fixed and meditated on the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna without interruption. So in this way, the effect of such intense meditation on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Krishna is described in 1.15.47 and 48. A very, very important narration and description is given here about the final destination of the Pandavas, which is completely in difference to the description of the Mahabharata. So what is it? Here it is stated, tadhyano driktaya bhaktya vishuddha dhishana pare tasmin narayana pade hekanta matayo ghatim avapur duravapamte hyasadbhir vishayatmabhihi vidhuta kalmashasthanam virajena atmanaivahi. Thus, by constant devotional meditation and remembrance on the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Vaikuntha Charanambujam, tadhyana, by such intense meditation, udriktaya bhaktya, by pure consciousness, they were vishuddha dhishana pare, they attained the spiritual sky, vishuddha dhishana, the pure place of the Supreme Lord, which is pare, which is beyond the material world. Tasmin Narayana Pada, that is known as Narayana Pada or the Vaikuntha Loka. ekantamatayo gatim. This is attained only by those who meditate upon the Supreme Lord, upon Bhagavan, without deviation. If anyone is a Brahmavadi or even a Paramatmavadi, he has no access to the higher realms of liberation or moksha. A Brahmavadi can only attain the Brahma Jyoti, and a Paramatmavadi can attain the Ashta Siddhis and just go little beyond the Brahma Jyoti. But it is only a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord can attain, can cross the realms of Brahman and reach the Vaikuntha Loka, the eternal spiritual kingdom of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. This place, which is also known as Goloka Vrindavana, cannot be attained by persons who are still, who are having even the slightest tinge of Vishaya or material desire. But the Pandavas were Vidhuta Kalmasha, completely washed of all material contamination, and Sthanam, they attained that supreme spiritual abode which is Virajena Viraja Sthanam, which is beyond Viraja, Atmanevahi, in their self-same bodies. So this is the most wonderful achievement of the final destination attained by the Pandavas. So now we need to properly understand and also the difference in the description of the Mahabharata and of the Srimad Bhagavatam. The Mahabharata says that the Pandavas attained only Svargaloka, only Yudhishthira Maharaj in his self-same body, whereas the other Pandavas, they attained Svargaloka only after giving up, after dying, after death, after giving up their material body. Then in their subtle forms they went to Svargaloka. Whereas the Srimad Bhagavatam very clearly says that Vaikuntha Charanambujam Narayana Pade Viraja Sthanam Atmanaivahi. The Pandavas, in their self-same bodies, they attained, they went back to the, not to Svargaloka, they surpassed the Svargaloka, Mahagloka, Janaloka, Tapoloka, even Brahmaloka, even Brahma Jyoti, everything the Pandavas surpassed, and they reached Vaikuntha Loka or Goloka Vrindavana in their spiritual forms, in their self-same spiritual bodies, without death, without giving up their so-called body of Panchabhutas, because the Pandavas did not have a Pancha Bhautika Sharira, a body made of material elements, but they had spiritual forms, and in their self-same spiritual forms they went back to the spiritual world. So how do we reconcile and properly understand both these statements, both these descriptions and narrations of the Mahabharata and the Srimad Bhagavatam? The great acharyas like Madhvacharya in his Mahabharata Tatparya Nirnaya, and later many great acharyas like Baladeva Vidyabhushana, Vishwanatha Chakravarti Thakura, Jiva Goswami have written elaborate commentaries to reconcile both these narrations so that we can properly comprehend these differing narrations. So these are very elaborate commentaries and descriptions. I shall very briefly explain in a very simple manner so that we can understand this difference. The fact is, the Pandavas, they can be described to be dual personalities. Dual personalities, like we have in the movies also, they sometimes show a double role. But here the double role is in one person. It is like two personalities in one person, in one body. So just like sometimes even in medical terms they say that multiple personality syndrome, that a certain person may act in a certain way for some time and in a different way at some other time, due to different identification at different points of time. So likewise, the Pandavas, they are dual personalities, they are two in one. So just like to give you a proper understanding, Yudhishthira is an Amsha of Dharmaraja, and he is also an Amsha of a Nitya Pagshada, an eternal associate from Vaikuntha Loka. Arjuna is Indra Amsha, Bhima is Vayu Amsha, but along with that he is also a Nitya Pagshada, one portion, the major, the final, the ultimate identity of Arjuna is that he is not an Amsha of Indra, although that Amsha is also joined along with him, but the real identity of Arjuna's Atma, of his soul, is that he is the Nitya Pagshada, he is the eternal associate of the Supreme Lord Krishna, coming directly from Vaikuntha Loka. So when the Pandavas, when Kunti, when Draupadi have come to this material world from Vaikuntha Loka in their spiritual bodies, in their Satchidananda Vigraha, one Amsha of Indra, of Shachi Devi, of Vayu, of Dharmaraja, of the two Ashwini Kumaras have joined in their personality. And Mahabharata, which is explained in the Bhagavatam, in all the scriptures, that Stri Shudra Dvija Bandhunam Traina Shruti Gochara Karma Shreyasi Mudhanam Shreya Evam Bhavediha. The Mahabharata is meant for the ordinary class of people who cannot understand the higher philosophical truths, and therefore the focus of Mahabharata is only on the aspect of the personality of the Pandavas from the material perspective, that they are an Amsha of the various Devatas. Whereas the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is declared in 1.1.2, that Dharmaha projita kaitavotra paramo nirmatsaranam satam, where the Mahabharata is written with a certain audience in mind by the self same author Vedavyasa. So the audience, the target audience of Mahabharata is the most common ordinary person who is interested in very nice stories and narrations, and through which a little bit tidbits of spirituality are given. Whereas the Srimad Bhagavatam is meant for the Paramahamsas, for people who are completely purified of all material contamination, and for those in pure spiritual consciousness. So Bhagavatam is pure spiritual literature, and therefore it completely overlooks the mixture of the material personality of the Pandavas and completely focuses on their original constitutional position as the eternal associates of Krishna from the spiritual world, from Vaikuntha Loka. So this is the ultimate, the final understanding. The Mahabharata is just a material, a very common, a very ordinary perspective of the Mahaprasthana of the Pandavas, whereas the Srimad Bhagavatam is the spiritual ultimate and the complete perspective of the final destination of the Pandavas. So therefore no one should think or mistakenly understand that the Pandavas were some ordinary kings or warriors who died. In the Bhagavatam, there is no such thing called death for the Pandavas. They went back to Vaikuntha Loka, the spiritual world, in their self-same spiritual bodies. So, after that, it is also explained that Viduropi parityajya prabhase dehamatmanaha Krishnaveshena tachittaha pitribhihi svakshayam yayau. Vidura also gave up his body. Vidura is a very special case. He is also a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, but he is actually the Amsha of, he is none other than Yamaraja. Yamaraja is also a great pure devotee. Although he is a Devata, even among the Devatas, there are very few who are Bhagavatas, who are pure devotees of the Supreme Lord. Most of the Devatas are ordinary devotees. They are Sakama Bhaktas. They are devotees with a lot of material desires and material attachment. All the general, all the Devatas like Indra, Chandra, Vayu, they are all Sakama Bhaktas. They are never counted among the pure devotees of the Lord like Pandava, Prahlada, Dhruva, Kunti, or even Narada, or here like Vidura or Yamaraja. So although Yamaraja, the king of Pitraloka, is also a Devata, but yet his position is very unique. Yamaraja, Brahma, they are among the 12 great authorities. They are Mahabhagavatas, and they are authorities on Bhagavata Dharma or on pure devotional service. So Yamaraja, although a pure devotee of the Supreme Lord, has taken up this responsibility as a service, as his bhakti, as his devotional service to the Supreme Lord, and therefore although he can immediately go back to Vaikuntha Loka, to spiritual world, he stays back in this material world to render this very thankless but special service to the Supreme Lord as the Lord of Death. So Vidura had been earlier Yamaraja. So Yamaraja was cursed by one Manduka Muni, and therefore he took birth as Vidura. It is nothing but an arrangement by the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord Shri Krishna was coming to the material world, was coming to this samsara to perform his divine pastimes, his divine leela, and in order to also participate, to join the Supreme Lord, Yamaraja apparently got cursed by Manduka Muni and came to as Vidura to also join the Lord's divine leela. So in fact, whenever Krishna would come to Hastinapura, he would never go to the palace of the Kauravas. He never had even a single meal at the home of the Kauravas. He would always go to the home of his pure devotee Vidura and have his meal, the bhoga, the prasadam offered by Vidura. So at Prabhasa Kshetra, Vidura gave up his mortal frame and he went back to Pitraloka. He was reinstated in his position as Yamaraja, as the Lord of religion and of death. Likewise, Draupadi cha tadagnyaya patinam anapekshatam Vasudeve Bhagavati hekanta gatirapatam. It is also stated in Mahabharata, that story is completely different. That looks upon Draupadi as an amsha of Shachi, whereas here in the Bhagavatam, it is very clearly stated that Draupadi also went back to Vasudeve Bhagavati Hi Ekanta Ghatirapatam. She also went back to Vaikuntha Loka in her self same spiritual body. So they do not have, the Pandavas, Draupadi, they do not have any material gunas. They are always Trigunatita, situated in their spiritual forms and with spiritual qualities, and they went back again to the spiritual world. So finally, in 1.15.51, Suta Goswami explains the great spiritual benefit simply by hearing the Mahaprasthana of the Pandavas from the right source of the Srimad Bhagavatam, not from the Mahabharata. So here it is explained that Yashraddhayai tad Bhagavat Priyanam Pando Sutanam iti samprayanam Shrunotyalam swastyayanam pavitram labdva harau bhaktimupeti siddhim. The subject of the departure of the Pandavas for the ultimate destination of life, back to the spiritual world, back home, back to Godhead, is fully auspicious. It is perfectly pure. Anyone who hears this narration with faith gains Harau Bhaktihi, the devotional service of the Supreme Lord, and thereby Siddhim, the ultimate perfection of life, of also going back home, back to Godhead. So this is the wonderful narration. Even if somebody with proper faith and from the correct source hears about the final destination of the Pandavas to the spiritual world, also becomes purified of all material contamination and becomes eligible to return back home, back to Godhead, the eternal spiritual kingdom of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. So one should understand this from the proper authorities, with the proper understanding and with a proper perspective as given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and not have simply a partial material understanding about the Pandavas from the text of Mahabharata. One should advance and graduate further to the study of the Srimad Bhagavatam to properly and rightly understand the divine spiritual position of the Pandavas, who are the eternal associates of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Now let us move to the next chapter, the 16th chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, about how Parikshit ruled and received the age of Kali Yuga. As mentioned earlier in 1.15.35, that Ahar, the day the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna went back to the spiritual world, is the beginning of the Kali Yuga. The Kali Yuga is the most spiritually degraded among all the four yugas of Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga, and finally is the Kali Yuga, in which we all are living. Currently 5,149 years have passed since the beginning of Kali Yuga. So at the beginning of Kali Yuga, the first emperor, that is Parikshit Maharaj, how did he receive and deal with Kali Yuga and also the Kali Purusha, the personality of Kali? That is explained in the 16th and 17th chapters of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So Suta Goswami narrates, Suta Uvacha Tata Parikshit Dvijavarya Shikshaya Mahim Mahabhagavata Shashasaha Yathahi Sutyam Abhijatako Vidaha Samadishan Vipramahad Gunastatha. Maharaj Parikshit then began to rule over the entire world. Mahabhagavataha, just like a Mahabhagavata, a great pure devotee of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, also under the instructions of the great sages. So Parikshit, he married the daughter of King Uttara, Sa Uttarasya Tanayam Upayema Iravatim, whose name is Iravati. So Iravati is the daughter of the king of Uttara. So they are actually Parikshit and Iravati. They are cousins, but the maternal cousin is allowed to marry. So therefore, this was the system in those days. So, and also prevalent in many societies currently as well. So King Parikshit married the daughter of King Uttara, whose name is Iravati, and he begot Janamejayadims Chaturas Tasyam Utpadayat Sutan. They begot 4 sons, and the eldest is Janamejaya. So Janamejaya is also the one, just like Parikshit is the first recipient of the message of Srimad Bhagavatam, the message of the narration of Mahabharata was heard by Janamejaya from the great sage Vaishampayana Rishi. So Maharaj Parikshit then performed many great sacrifices, which were the right means to worship during those times the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. It is also stated that Devaha Yatra Akshi Gocharaha, during the sacrificial performances of Maharaj Parikshit, even till up to that point of Maharaj Parikshit, the Devatas would personally come and accept the offerings given in such performances. So after some time, Suta Goswami says that Nijagrahauja Viraha Kalim Digvijaye Kvachit Nripalingadharam Shudram Gdantam Gomithunam Pada. Once Parikshit Maharaj came upon the personality of Kali, who had disguised himself as a king and was attacking a bull and a cow, and at that time Maharaj Parikshit severely chastised the personality of Kali, known as Kali Purusha. So when the sages of Naimisharanya heard about this incident, they were eager to hear in further detail about this incident, and therefore Shaunaka Rishi, on behalf of all the sages of Naimisharanya, inquired that Shaunaka Uvacha Kasya Hetogni Jagraha Kalim Digvijaye Nripaha. Why did Maharaj Parikshit simply just punish him, since he was the lowest of mankind, having disguised as a king and having attacked a cow on the leg? Please describe all these incidents in great detail, but Yadi Krishna Kathashrayam, only if they are related to the topics of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Otherwise, we are not so keen to hear about these subject matters, because Athavasya Padam Bhoja Makarandaliham Satam Kimanyed Asadalaper Ayusho Yad Asad Vyayaha. The devotees of the Supreme Lord are completely devoted to licking up the honey available from the narrations of the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. What is the use of topics which simply waste one's valuable life? This is a very important philosophical truth to understand here, that here the sages of Naimisharanya say that Padam Bhoja Makarandaliham, the lotus feet, or the feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, are compared to a lotus flower. This is very important to understand. Whenever there is a mention of the feet of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, they are compared to Padam Bhoja, Pada Kamala, So why is it that the feet of the Supreme Lord Krishna compared to a lotus flower? So the great acharyas have explained that actually the Supreme Lord Krishna never steps in samsara, in the material world. Krishna never comes, never even takes a single step in the material world. How is it so? Because beyond the material world, beyond the temporary material world, is the eternal, spiritual, divine, transcendental kingdom of the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, which is known as Vaikuntha Loka. And in the Vaikuntha Loka, the supreme Sarvopari, the supreme spiritual place, planet is known as Goloka Vrindavana, and Goloka Vrindavana is in the shape of the whorl of a lotus flower, a Kamala. And whenever the Supreme Lord Krishna comes from the eternal Goloka Vrindavana, that Vrindavana also accompanies, and this Goloka Vrindavana is in the shape of a lotus flower, and that accompanies the Supreme Lord as well. So the divine Dhamma, the eternal kingdom of the Supreme Lord, comes along with him, and wherever he steps, that is the Dhamma of the Supreme Lord. Krishna never steps on any ordinary land on the material world in this samsara. He always, wherever he steps, underneath his divine feet is the spiritual world of Goloka Vrindavana, and therefore Krishna has lotus feet. So that eternal kingdom of God is the final destination of the pure devotees, and therefore the sages of Naimisharanya who aspire to attain, to achieve that eternal lotus-like Goloka Vrindavana, they say, they express that we do not have any interest in the material topics of this material world. So therefore, if this topic is connected to the attainment of moksha in the spiritual world, in the lotus-like spiritual world of Shri Krishna, then please continue to narrate to us these nectarian topics of the eternal pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Here a very beautiful narration, a description is given that Kshudrayusham Nrinamanga Magtyanam Ritamichhatam Ihopahuto Bhagavan Mrutyuhu Shamitra Karmani. Those who are wise and intelligent people among the Martyas. Martya means a person who is destined to die, and all the jivatmas in this material world are called Martyas because everyone is destined to die. So Kshudrayusham Nrinamanga Magtyanam Ritam Ichhatam. There are very few people among the Martyas in this samsara who desire to attain the eternal kingdom of the Supreme Lord in the spiritual world. So those such intelligent people, what do? Very simple. Iha upahutaha. They call Mrityuhu. They call the controller of Mrityu, of death. Who is that? Yamaraja. How do they call him? They simply engage and absorb themselves in the hearing of the Srimad Bhagavatam. It is explained that wherever Srimad Bhagavatam is recited or narrated, the Bhagavatam being the pure topics connected with the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, Yamaraja, the controller of death, he is also a pure devotee of Krishna. So wherever there is the pure narration of Bhagavata Katha, Yamaraja takes a break and he goes to that place to hear Srimad Bhagavatam. So therefore, as long as Bhagavata Katha is going on, there need not be any fear from death. So, na kaschin mriyate tavad yavad asta ihantakaha. The sages of Naimisharanya are very confident that now we are discussing the topics of Bhagavatam and Antaka. Antaka is another name of Yamaraja. Yamaraja has surely come here and he is also sitting in the audience, maybe in some disguise, but he is such a great devotee of Krishna that here wherever there is Bhagavata Katha, so here there is Bhagavata Katha and he has come here. So na kaschin mriyate tavad, as long as the Bhagavata Katha is going on, Yamaraja will remain here and no one is going to die. The great sages have invited Yamaraja. So living beings who are under his grip must take of this advantage by hearing etad artham hi bhagavan ahutah paramagshibhi aho nriloke piyeta hari leelamritam vachaha. Therefore, aho nriloka, O people of this world, the sages of Naimisharanya are giving this great advice to all of us that if you want to become free from the fear of death, simply Hari Leela Amritam, be absorbed in the narration of the Hari Leela, of the divine transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord Sri Hari as narrated in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and as long as you are absorbed in Hari Leela Amritam, Yamaraja would also be present, the controller of death, and there is no fear of death. No one can die an ordinary death. Even if somebody dies hearing Hari Leela, as would be the destination of Parikshit, one is sure to go back to the supreme, the eternal kingdom of God, to Vaikuntha Loka. So therefore, the sages of Naimisharanya are not interested, who are not interested in any temporary topics of this material world, they inquire that if these topics are related to the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna and would be conducive to the attainment of the spiritual world and to defeat death or mrityu, then please continue to narrate. So then we find the wonderful narration of how Parikshit received and dealt with the onslaught of the beginning of Kali Yuga. So what would happen, how Kali received and dealt with Kali, we would hear in the next session. So please do subscribe and like our YouTube channel. Please do join us for the remaining few sessions on the narration of this program on the Srimad Bhagavatam. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.